All right, we welcome back Austin Hough from the South Bend Tribune, and we're going to be talking about Class 3A with Austin. State finals on Saturday at I always want to say Bankers Life Fieldhouse. It's Gamebridge Fieldhouse, and it's 6 o'clock on Saturday night. I can't imagine there's going to be a more exciting game. I mean, I could be wrong. I think all four of these games are intriguing in some way or another. But the amount of points we could see Austin in this game I would say the odds are going to be pretty good that this will be the highest scoring game of the four. But your team, the team you're covering day to day, South Bend, St. Joe, made it back here last year. Austin, what's different? Yeah, I want to start with this. Maybe what's different from last year to this year? Is this team better than last year's team, or how would you kind of assess year to year?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, I still want to call it Conseco Fieldhouse, so if it makes me feel any better. But yes, I believe this team is better, and I really do think the addition of Ethan Roseman has been the difference. No disrespect to Jerry Barca last year. He was a great kid. He's doing great things at Notre Dame as a student now. But he just wasn't the level of player that Roseman has been for St. Joe. I know people were concerned if he was going to be able to fit in because he scored a lot at Bishop Petard. Well, he's one of the top assisters in the state. I think 7 a game now. He's just a dynamic player. And he has the ability to go get you a bucket when needed. He's not going to be the main offensive guy, but that semi-state final against East Chicago, they was getting a little tight in the third quarter, and Roseman kind of ripped off 8 out of 12 points for his team, where he was driving downhill, making short jumpers, kind of doing the things he did at Chittard, where he was averaging 20 a game. So I think he's been the difference as far as them going from good to great. I think this is a pretty darn good to great team that they have this year, where last year they were good and they kind of got hot as well at the right time. So they've been consistently great all season. And I think Roseman has actually been kind of the key part to make everyone around them sing even more. And then the likes of Elijah King stepping up in his offensive ability compared to last year. Nick Shrewsbury being a little more consistent with the 3-point shot. Knesny's been Knesny all 4 years, basically. So, yeah, they kind of all elevated around, but Roseman, the addition, I think, took them to that next level.
And Ethan is playing a more of a, like you said, distributor role. He's not really shooting from the perimeter basically at all. No. And he's kind of driving and picking his spots and getting the ball where it needs to be. And I think that's been a great addition as well. And when you look at this team, I wanted to ask you about this too right at the beginning here, but Chase Knesny, the Knesny name, has gone. I know you're working on a story on this, Austin, but he's over 2,000 points. I mean, his numbers across the board, including efficiency numbers, are pretty incredible this year. But this will be the last game for the. I asked him, "Is there any more Knesnys coming?" He said, "No,
nope, this is it."
They've run dry on Knesny's boys and girls side, but what has he meant for this team? What is that family? Kind of speak to that a little bit, if you would, and what you're working on with that story.
Yeah, so this is a decade's worth of Knesnys. They were all 4 years apart. Nicole, the oldest sister, started at LaPorte High School. She played 2 years there, and then she played her last 2 at St. Joe's. So since 2015-16, there's been at least one Knesny in that high school playing basketball, whether it be the girls or the boys. Nicole played 2, JR played 4 years, and then Chase played the last 4. I did the math. I believe it's 5,583 combined points between the 3. Each one got progressively higher in the point total. Nicole was one of the catalysts of that 2017 3A state championship team. He was an Indiana All-Star. JR got within a last second shot by Leo in the semi-state final in 2021 to going to the state finals, maybe winning it that year. Who knows? Leo only lost by 1 to Silver Creek that year. So St. Joe could have been in the mix potentially to win that season. And then, Chase has come in and, since January 4th of last season, they were 6-7 in January 4th, 2024. Since then, they've gone 40-6. And Chase has been obviously a huge part of that, kind of rewritten what the legacy could have been, for lack of a better term, because it felt like they were going for another 500 type season, but Chase and company have really just taken that to that next level. And, he's got the most points in St. Joe history, second in county history, only to Marcus Burton. they're just great players, and they've been, kind of great leaders as well. Like all three of them, captains of the team, not just because of their ability, but they are just like good people. And I think people like gravitate to them. And so, yeah, I'm doing a kind of a big blowout story. Like this is the last time we can write a Knesny family story at the South Bend Tribune. Like this is it. And so I think JR said it best. Like, when I talked to him yesterday, like it's not just about, being great players, but they've hoped that they've been like great role models for kids, and they hope that what they did, inspires the next generation to break all of their records too. So it's very cool. It would be pretty cool to see them Chase end it with the state title Saturday night. They already made jokes about JR not having a state championship ring, and so they've got to actually fulfill that now with Chase and them winning. It's obviously going to be a tough task with Crispus Attucks, but it's one of the, we were rattling through how many families have there been in South Bend basketball, right? You don't think of them too many come off the top of your head, but in the last 10, 15 years, Knesny on the boys side with St. Joe, and then Reynolds on the girls and boys side in Washington. So you've had two of these great families in South Bend for the last however many years, and one of them is coming to an end, at least from the high school point, Saturday night at Gamebridge.
And a pretty cool family story too with Nick Shrewsbury, of course, the son of Micah and Notre Dame's coach, I should mention, and a Cathedral grad who has ties here in Indianapolis as well as Ethan Roseman does as well. So you have some connections to Indianapolis. But I wanted to ask you too about Elijah King, because I think he's a name that I think we'll be hearing more about in the coming years. And he's a guy that he looks the part of like a Division I player for sure to me when I watch him. But what is his progression kind of meant? I know he had a really good weekend last weekend in the semi-state.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch him in this postseason. I was talking with Coach Eric Gaff right after their first sectional game, because it felt like in the second half against Washington to start the sectional, he really took off like Elijah did. And he's like, yeah, we've challenged Elijah. Sometimes he's not there for the full 32 minutes, whether it's fair or not. Like that's what Eric said pretty much. And he's like, we're challenging him. Like we're giving him benchmarks. He has to do this, and this in certain games. And it really feels like he's elevated his play in the postseason. I mean, you saw it. He made the game winner, the game-winning free throws against Culver Academies in the sectional. He made the game-winning layup with a minute left against Columbia City in the regional. Led them in scoring in the semi-state final. I believe he led them in scoring in the semifinal as well. They scored 115 points. I forgot who actually scored them all, but they scored 115. It was crazy. And so he's always last year on the team. He was a great defensive player when they went to state. He wasn't as much of an offensive threat. And it feels like this past offseason, he really focused more on the offense. And he also put some muscle mass on. Like he looks bigger, physically stronger, which helps, when you're trying to become more of an offensive type player. And it helps the defense too. So he's been super impressive. And he's kind of been the X factor, difference maker, whatever term you want to use, for them making this deep run, because without him, they might not have, gotten this far. So he's been a standout player, and he's going to, be one of the focal points next year once Knesny graduates. And they'll be in 4A next year too. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I
didn't think about that. That's a good point. The success factor.
This is it. This is it for they might as well win it, right? I think that's kind of what they said. Like, this is going to be our last game for a couple of years in 3A. It's just, let's go do this and let's win this. And they've got all the motivation in the world after being very close to doing it last year.
Well, again, South Bend St. Joe takes on Crispus Attucks. Attucks 22-6. Austin, what do you as I look at this game, and I was just, talking to Chris Hawkins actually a little bit ago earlier today, but, what do you think as far as this matchup goes? Because Attucks is a team that, similarly to South Bend St. Joe, they may be a little bit more top heavy with Briscoe and Chris Hurt, but also they have a lot of other guys who can score double figures on a given night. We've seen AJ Jones come in out of nowhere and have great games for them. Caden English has been consistently pretty good for them. Shea Brownlow. So how do you see this matchup from your side of things, covering South Bend St. Joe? I mean, how do you think they match up with Attucks?
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me the most with St. Joe is just the fact that they're not super tall. Like Knesny, Shrewsbury are 6'4", and those are their tallest guys. Briscoe obviously listed at 6'9". So um, slowing him down, containing him, like dominate, like they got to at least be even on the glass. Like they cannot be out rebounded by 10, 15. Otherwise, this might be a long night for the Huskies. Um, you know, St. Joe loves to play at the blistering pace. I mean, when you get someone that wants to also play fast with them as well, we saw what happened, which is what happened both times in the semi-state this past weekend. I mean, McConaughey wanted to run, East Chicago wanted to run, and St. Joe scored 199 combined points. So I don't think they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna get to 84 or more on Saturday. It might hopefully be a little more normal. You don't have to like have a sore neck after the game, but I if St. Joe can control the pace like that, if they can like rebound and like do the quick outlets, which they are really good at, like whoever grabs the rebound is usually pretty good about finding it to Roseman, and then Roseman's kind of pretty good about picking it up. They're really good about getting back. So Eric Gaff mentioned the transition game will be very important, both defensively and offensively for them, especially when Crispus Attucks wants to take the ball and run. So controlling the rebounds, I think, is number one, though. Like they have to figure out, they have to do their best to make sure that Briscoe doesn't just get 10, 15 offensive rebounds, and that to me I think is the biggest element of this for them, because they just aren't as tall. They're athletic, they've got some length, but they're not height. There's not much height there. So I'll be fascinated to see who plays defensively on Briscoe to start. I'm gonna guess they're gonna let Brashawn Woods, who is technically like their quote unquote like big guy center. He's like 6'3", 6'4". I'm gonna guess Woods will defend him, or they'll have like a zone or something, some sort of thing to throw at them to try to slow Briscoe down. But you mentioned the guards. Like the guards have been playing very well for Attucks as well. So you got to make sure you're guarding those guys as well, not let them shoot threes all night, and then the scoreboard gets out of hand like that way too.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. And another from the Attucks side of things too, obviously keeping Briscoe out of foul trouble, which has happened at times. Like a lot of big guys, but it's happened for them at times, including the city championship against Cathedral. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a fun game. Austin, just kind of lastly here, when you look at this, the South Bend St. Joe team, so they have the advantage of they've been through a week like this before. Attucks, it's been 8 years, so obviously none of these guys have been through this particular type of week. But it might sound like a cliche question, but I got to think it helps that team. That these guys have been through this before. Other than Ethan, they've been through this before a year ago.
Yeah, five of their seven core players played in the game last year. So, and then their entire coaching staff coached in this game last year too. Like all the assistants are the same. Obviously, Eric Gaff, the head coach, is the same. So they know this. I asked Eric about this on Tuesday, and he said, "Yeah, last year the guys were asking me what are we doing," and I was like, "That's a great question. I don't know. Like this year we have the entire plan laid out before they got back to Logansport, or back from Logansport is what they said. Like got home from South Bend late Saturday night. Everyone knew exactly what they were doing this week. Like who's going to the media day Monday. Like the luncheon on Thursday. Like they got the whole thing down. Like they know exactly what practice looks like. So I got to think that helps, right? Like just having that sense of familiarity. It's the second weekend in a row they've had a familiar feel. Like last year, semi-state, they went to Logansport, played the 10 a.m. game, right? Like they know what it was like to kind of go through that, get down there Friday night, right? Same thing with the state finals. Like they know exactly what the feel of this will be. You'd like to think that helps them. That's not always the case, but it can't hurt them knowing what this is going to look like. They've played in Gainbridge Field. It's one thing to do a practice in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's another to play in front of, 10, 15,000 people. You're going to have people from the 4A game filing in, like the second half might look like a sellout, in Gainbridge. So that's got to be a benefit for them to go through this again. And, other than the head coach for Attucks, right? No one else has been through this process before. So.
Absolutely. And I will say, Briscoe is kind of big game Briscoe, I will say. So I think he enjoys these games.
I'm not necessarily worried about Attucks, showing up per se, but St. Joe, like just like I said, just helps them maybe a little bit that they know exactly like, okay, it says 6 p.m. start, but really it's 6:12, because they're gonna do you got to sing Back Home Again. You got to sing the anthem. You got to do all the cool entrances. So yeah, I think this will help them a little bit more. Maybe it helps them in the first couple minutes more so than anything, where the nerves, I'm sure, will be there, but it won't be as crazy high maybe as Attucks' nerves playing in Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
And it'll be fun. I mean, that will be. You're right. I mean, by the end of the 3A game, I think it'll be, kind of look like it's it's going to be a packed house. Hopefully, you always hope for that. So
yeah, I am fascinated by that Fishers Jeffersonville game too. So that'll be fun to stick around and watch from the press room. So
absolutely, the night game will be the night session. I should say will be, and so will the first. I mean, you have 4 teams.
There's some fun games.
Yeah.
You got about a half dozen Indiana All-Star potential, guys on the floor across all 4 games. There's definitely some cases made for, like Jake McGraw, Clinton Prairie, and Gavin Benton at Manchester. So then I got Knesny, Briscoe. You got everyone on Fishers could be an All-Star at this point. Jeffersonville with their 3 D1 guys. There's a lot of talent, a lot of senior talent we're going to see for the last time. Not to make the sales pitch for the state finals as a whole, but it's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a fun Saturday at Gainbridge.
Well, I always felt like this 25 class was special, and I think we're, even though we lost a few guys along the way to prep schools and whatnot, I mean, this has been a really good high school basketball season just because these senior class is so deep and so good. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well. Again, Austin will be there for the 6 o'clock game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. St. Joe is 26-3, Attucks 22-6. And should be a lot of points scored and a lot of fun. But Austin, appreciate you joining me here. I'm sure we'll see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it as always.
You bet.